I've been tossing up making this video for the past couple days. I've, recorded bits and then deleted it and decided not to do it and, you know, basically just decided it wasn't worth it. But as I've watched this whole situation unfold, I've become more and more disappointed in Star Wars Theory's conduct over the past couple of days. And I've been more and more willing to just take the plunge and to make this video. I want it to be clear before I start talking about anything that I don't want this to seem like I'm throwing shade at Theory, at Pablo, at anyone. This video is simply me talking about what I've seen and what I feel about the whole situation. And I really don't want it to seem like I'm trying to besmirch anyone involved. While I will be criticizing the people involved, I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to judge their character. I don't know these people. I will never truly be able to know their true intentions, but all I'm doing is criticizing the actions that I've seen unfold. I'm going to be splitting this video up into 3 main parts just for simplicity. I'm also going to be using some timestamps in the description down below so you can jump around, since this will be a very long video. But I would recommend for the whole story to watch it just from start to finish. I'm going to try and cut it down as much as I can so it's not boring. The first section will be a bit more context about the original tweet and the original situation that happened on the first day. The second will be talking about Theory's reactions and what happened afterwards. And the third will be talking about what both parties could have done differently and what they should do differently in future. But yeah, firstly, I'm going to talk about the original tweets, the original context behind the tweets. I feel as though the context has been a bit muddied over the past couple days, and people have sort of lost the initial thing that happened. So here's what happened. At the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, spoilers, Luke Skywalker returns, and Star Wars Theory had a live stream where he was reacting, and he got extremely emotional and cried on stream at the sight of Luke Skywalker. And this is one of my favorite clips on Theory's channel. It is really emotionally moving, and I love it. It's a fantastic clip, and I'm so glad that it got caught on live stream, because it's a wonderful clip, and you should watch it if you haven't. Now, some people on Twitter disagreed for whatever reason. Some people believe that he was faking his reaction. Some people, I don't know, just had a problem with him crying for some reason. Either way, there was a massive Twitter thread of people trying to basically bash or troll Star Wars Theory for having this emotional reaction. In response to this thread, Pablo Hidalgo, who is someone who works at Lucasfilm, responded by saying, "Emotions aren't for sharing." Now, this may seem like he is also condemning Star Wars Theory for having an emotional reaction, but I do not see this in any way. I feel like a more clear way to word the sarcasm would be, "Oh yeah, because emotions are totally not for sharing, right?" But instead, he just said, "Emotions are not for sharing." They both serve the same sarcastic joke. They are condemning the people who are saying that Star Wars Theory shouldn't have an emotional reaction. In fact, there's a very easy way to prove this, since the original poster of the thread responded to Pablo Hidalgo to try and defend his own view about Star Wars Theory's reaction. So, why would the original poster of the thread feel the need to defend himself if Pablo wasn't criticizing him? I think that's a major point of context that a lot of people are ignoring. Pablo is most definitely not attacking Star Wars Theory. He is not making fun of Star Wars Theory. He's using sarcasm to criticize the people who are making fun of Theory in the first place. In many ways, Pablo Hidalgo was defending Star Wars Theory. However, for whatever reason, Star Wars Theory didn't see it this way, and now we're going to get into what Theory's response was, because I think there's a lot of issues here. Now, there was one mistake that Pablo made, and I'm going to talk about that soon, but in the long run, I feel a lot of mistakes were made on Theory's side that I just wish to talk about. When Star Wars Theory saw Pablo's tweet, he responded by saying, basically, Pablo is validating this post and undermining my emotions. This is, like I've discussed before, incorrect. I can see why you may think this is the case, but again, it couldn't be more clearly sarcasm in my mind. The reason I think this is because, again, the context of the situation. The fact that he entered a discussion with one of the original posters trying to say, hey, not cool, and the original poster responded defending himself. It makes no sense for Pablo to be just chiming in to make fun, especially since the people trolling Star Wars Theory didn't even see it that way. He doubles down and says, "You're telling people it's not okay to have emotions about the work your company produces, and you make fun of them for crying. Not okay." Like I stated before, I do not believe that Pablo is in any way making fun of Star Wars Theory. However, this is where I think the first mistake from Pablo came in. Not, again, not because he had any malicious intent, but I think his humor sort of backfired. He said it as his Twitter header. I can never know why he said it as his Twitter header. In my mind, I feel like he was most likely trying to make some sort of, again, sarcastic and likely self-deprecating joke. He very well may not have known that Star Wars Theory was even talking about this or even saw it. But I can never know. So yes, it very well could just be something he's using to self-deprecate, or he could be trying to mock Star Wars Theory for having his reaction to the original tweet. We can never know, so I'm going to skip over this point, simply because we can't know the intentions. We can't assume the intentions, so we can't really use this point as much evidence. However, either way, I think it was a mistake on Pablo's part making the tweet at all, not dependent on his intent, because obviously it's going to be spun a different way if it wasn't malicious, and if it was malicious, well, it's bad for just being malicious. Theory then made his first reaction video to the whole situation, so let's have a look at that now.
Now, I can't see what Mr. Hidalgo is saying. He has a locked profile, but I can see that he's responded several times to this thread, which is making fun of me.
It's going to seem like I'm nitpicking here, but I'm most certainly not. Star Wars Theory has almost 3 million subscribers. What he says is going to find the ears of millions of people. So, to make any type of mistake is going to mean that the impressions imprinted on those people will suddenly become false. And in this case, where these people are going to flock to possibly harass somebody, you can't put the wrong images inside people's heads. Theory said that Pablo made several responses to the thread. This is incorrect. This paints him as someone who was constantly trying to make fun of Theory and really digging into him. But he made one response where, in the context we've discussed, was most likely in defense of Theory. So, to state that he made several responses paints an incorrect picture of what really happened.
And I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe, he was coming to my aid and be like, look, every fan deals with everything differently. But sure enough, no. He actually did chime in, along with the other tweets. He said emotions are not for sharing in response to that troll.
It's strange to me that even within that context, Theory can't see that Pablo is definitely coming to his aid. You see, before he saw the tweet, just looking at the context alone, he thought that maybe Pablo was coming to his defense. But for some reason, after seeing the tweet, he didn't see that it was just a sarcastic joke at the other person's expense. Humor is subjective, which means that everyone's sense of humor is different, and some people just won't ever understand other people's sense of humor. And I'm more than willing to accept that Theory just didn't think Pablo's joke was funny. But I can't see how, even within the context, he can't see the joke's purpose. And I feel like there's a very big difference. Because even if you don't find a joke funny or effective against someone else, surely you can see why it was said. I don't see how within the context it could ever seem like Pablo was trying to make fun of Theory. I don't see how that context would serve Pablo to make fun of Theory. The only way for the context with the joke to make sense was if Pablo was making fun of the troll who was making fun of Theory. It's the only way for everything to come together, and yet for whatever reason, Theory refuses to accept this.
Another thing, if you go into the likes and you count who the people are that like, this whole thing, there are a few missing, which only happens if you have a locked profile. Which leads me more to believe that, yeah, indeed, this guy is definitely just making fun of me.
Again, I have no interest in nitpicking here, but again, if you've got a channel this large, I feel like you can't get stuff like this wrong. There are plenty of people on Twitter with locked profiles. They're everywhere. You just don't see them because their accounts are locked. And that's fine. There are plenty of people that just like to be private. Pablo being one of them, sure, but just because Pablo has a locked profile and you can't find all of the likes of a tweet, it doesn't mean that Pablo is one of them just because he's got a locked account. Again, you can't get this type of stuff wrong when you've got a channel so large and you're making an entire video about one guy. You know, it's just irresponsible. For the rest of the video, he just, continues to talk about Pablo and why he might have, again, been trying to make fun of him. But like we've discussed earlier, I really don't believe that's the case. And a lot of people don't believe that's the case. I've seen it everywhere in all of the responses on Twitter. And, again, when you've got a channel this large, if you're trying to put into people's heads that someone did a certain thing, then you better be sure that person was trying to do that thing. Because there are a lot of people now that I've seen trying to make fun of Pablo Hidalgo. There have been people trying to completely undermine him on YouTube. In your response video, you said you're not interested in cancelling anyone, but the problem is that the creator doesn't really get to make those decisions. When you blast someone on the internet, then your fans will most likely go to blast them too, and that is what leads to people getting cancelled. It's why you've got to be careful about who you aim your gun at. Eckhart Slatter, who's a Star Wars YouTuber, made a tweet about the whole situation, saying that it's a shame when we push away interesting creatives from the public fandom, and that he doesn't blame Pablo for going private and becoming a more private person after stuff like this. And then Star Wars Theory decided to respond to that, saying, maybe don't pick on the fans of your company, but yeah, if you speak out and stick up for yourself, then you're pushing creatives away. Mind your own business. And then he criticized him for making Marvel-style fan art videos as being hypocritical, and then claimed that Eckhart Slatter was bootlicking just because he didn't agree with Theory. This is something that I had a problem with in Theory's final response video. He claimed that anyone who disagreed with him was just trying to suck up to Lucasfilm, get free stuff, and get brownie points. This is extremely problematic. Again, 3 million subscribers, and he's basically bullying anyone who's got an opinion that's different to him. He's basically saying either you agree with me or you're just trying to be a Disney shill and you're just trying to suck up to them to try and get free stuff from them. This is ridiculous. Some people just disagree, and that's okay. But to claim that they are in some way just trying to get brownie points with Disney just because they're sticking up for someone that, again, as we've discussed, we reasonably believe didn't do anything wrong, and yet you're claiming that we're just trying to suck up to Disney because we don't agree with you. That is a very toxic mentality, and again, with someone with so many subscribers, you shouldn't be trying to spread that message because that's just going to create witch hunts. In your final response, you mentioned that you don't support cancelling, you don't support the firing, but if you're trying to push down and censor almost anyone who doesn't have the belief that Pablo's a dick, basically, then you're going to create witch hunts when you've got such a large fan base. And that's the main reason I made this video. It was the main reason I became so disappointed in Star Wars Theory's conduct. He suddenly just started using his platform for the wrong means. He is the largest Star Wars YouTuber, and yet he feels the need to tell people that they basically have to think Pablo Hidalgo is in the wrong. They have to agree with him. If you're in such a position where you've got so many followers, then yeah, people are going to also latch onto that opinion, and they're going to attack anyone who disagrees with you. That's just how it is. Because when people on YouTube see a creator that they like, that is very large in size, say something, they'll latch onto that opinion and they'll defend that opinion when anyone disagrees. And you're basically suppressing anyone who disagrees with you. That's bad. There's also an interesting line in Star Wars Theory's final response. He said, Lucasfilm and corporate professionals should always be the bigger person and act as such. And this is ironic because Pablo Hidalgo, I think the next day, made his final response, and he did just that. Pablo made his response saying, I wish to clarify that my post, Emotions Are Not to Be Shared, was sarcastic self-mockery, and was certainly not intended to be hurtful to anyone, and I'm deeply sorry that it was. As a lifelong fan, I appreciate fans expressing how they feel. It's what being a fan is about. Pablo, while he didn't try to make fun of anyone, while he didn't try to hurt anyone, he still deeply apologized in what seems to be a very genuine manner. He didn't try to make long posts defending himself. He didn't try to stand his ground. He was happy to just apologize and move on. And I think that's good. He was taking the high ground. Again, I don't want the takeaway from this video to be that either Pablo or Theory are bad people. They're both very good people from what I understand. However, now let's just talk about what could have been done differently to avoid a lot of this. First of all, it could be stated that Pablo just could have not made the tweet. He can't have necessarily known that it was going to be spun in the way it was, so I don't really think that he reasonably should have thought that. However, I guess in future we know that if you're at Lucasfilm, then don't chime into any thread that's making fun of a YouTuber, even if you're there to aid them. For Theory, I think he just needs to be more careful in future. He stated that he gave it 6 hours, but I don't believe he used those 6 hours to try and understand the other perspective. He simply used those 6 hours to find more dirt, so to speak. He tried to find more reasons to be angry. It didn't seem like he was really trying to see that maybe Pablo wasn't just trying to insult him blindly. And again, I think that this is quite disappointing, as he is the biggest Star Wars YouTuber, and he should be trying to see the benefit of the doubt, since anything he says, people are going to latch onto, and they're not going to let go for a very long time. He should not try to downplay people that disagree with him, and he shouldn't hold on to this idea that people are just Disney shills. You know, it's not like that. It's not the two sides of the coin being either Disney shill or on the side of the YouTubers. And I feel like the whole fandom as a whole has sort of latched onto this idea that everyone's either a Disney shill or a real Star Wars fan. And it's not like that. And I think spreading this message is extremely dividing and quite toxic. However, I don't think that was Theory's intention. I think he's just an extremely passionate fan. I think he's someone that just loves Star Wars. And when Star Wars disappoints him, it makes him really quite upset. Like all of us, it makes him quite upset. And I think when someone who is high up at Lucasfilm, a company he respects, and it seems like they're trying to make fun of him for crying, I can see why he'd get angry. But I think he should have tried a bit harder to see that other side, even though that can be extremely hard. And again, I don't blame him for the response he had. I just hope in future he doesn't have this same reaction. But that is pretty much all from me. Again, I've said it multiple times throughout the video, but I'm going to say it one last time. I don't want it to seem like I'm throwing shade at Star Wars Theory or Pablo Hidalgo. I think both of them were very misunderstanding of what happened. I think that this was blown out of proportion. I think that things have just blown up in a way that they shouldn't have. I made this video because I want to see change in the community in future. I don't want this type of thing to happen again, and I wouldn't feel right to just stay silent. The same way that Star Wars Theory wouldn't feel right if he stayed silent with his perspective of the situation. And I think that no one did anything that was malicious here. I don't think anyone did anything to purposely hurt anyone. So I do hope that if anyone involved watches this video, you know, Pablo or Theory, I hope that they come out of this not thinking that I think they're a bad person or anyone in the community thinks they're a bad person. I think they are good people that made a couple of errors in judgment, like any human would in a situation like this. And I just hope that in future it goes a little differently. Again, no shade to either of them. Neither of them are bad people. Neither of them are malicious. They just made some errors. Thank you to anyone who watched through the entire video. It's very long, so thank you. I hope that no one got hurt out of this. I hope that this hasn't made anyone upset. If you do decide to discuss this in the comments down below, I ask that you please keep it civil. If I see any threads that become too out of hand, I will be deleting them. Not because I want to censor anyone, but just because I want it to be civil. Thank you for watching today's video. Have a great new year. Have a great day, and I hope to see you soon.